I guess a nice, good question to get started with is if you can give us a bit of a summary of your career.
It's interesting. It's a common interview question, as in when you're going for a job.
Do you do
And,
many of the interviews, by the way?
well, I had one this morning.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And it wasn't asked. They didn't ask you to summarize your career, but it was definitely one that I had thought about. Mostly, though, I don't think people really want to know the ins and outs of what you did all the way through your journey, but the sort of maybe the highlights or what was dear to you.
Right.
The things that I sort of fondly remember across, I guess it's 20 years, is starting out as a house officer in the UK, in Brighton, and having a couple of mates around me, all as scared as I was. And I don't think you realise how scared you are when you start your job. What you realise is when you're handing over to the next person a year later, and you look at them and you think, you're really nervous about starting medicine. I must have been like that. And so you only generate the insight into, I think, how anxious or anxiety producing it was when you see what you were probably like, having journeyed through that year.
I found that too. Now I'm a resident. I'm a solid year into the career, ready for retirement, but no. And yeah, like working with interns for the first time. Like I had medical students as an intern, but it's not the same. Actually having a colleague who's an intern, seeing the difference and how far you've come in a year is pretty interesting. So you started in Brighton, right?
Yeah. The gay capital of the UK.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And one of my first jobs was actually with a urology surgeon who did sex changes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As an intern, that was one of your first introductions to medicine.
Yeah, so I was helping to kind of manage those patients on the ward and afterwards. And then I think probably the next interesting kind of part of my life was as an anaesthetic registrar. Found myself flying around in a little 5-seater fixed wing to Europe, picking up people who had been on holiday, come a cropper maybe in a trauma moped accident, ended up in intensive care, and were being repatriated by the insurance companies.
Yes.
And so I would fly out, go in an ambulance to the hospital, then fly them back to wherever their hometown in the UK was. And although obviously, a cohort of patients who had something terrible happen to them in their lives, it was sort of relatively rewarding to help bring them back to their loved ones, but also, fascinating in terms of the transfer medicine.
You would have had a good exposure to a lot of the kind of technology that anaesthetists would use, right? Like are these medical planes, like medical transfer planes? Oh.
No, but fitted out, so kitted out.
Right, so you had like monitoring.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
Yeah. Did you ever have any mid-air emergencies where you had to intervene on things, or was it usually they were pretty stable before transfer?
Lots of protocols, lots of good non-technical skills, amazing nursing staff that go with you, and the pilots were all obviously very familiar with the processes. So lots of safety built into the process and the journeys. And you'd land, you'd have to stop off because you're carrying more weight on the way back than you were on the way there from the patient and a relative. So you'd stop off in somewhere like Lyon in France and refuel and just check everything was okay and then carry on. And these patients were stable. So rarely were they unstable enough they couldn't go in an ambulance or go in a plane. But it was hard to convince the Italian paramedics who would come and collect you from the airport that you didn't need to go blue light siren down the central reservation on the way to the hospital because there was no patient on board. So much to the calls of it's okay, you can just travel at the normal speed on a normal road, straight blue light all the way down the central reservation. Which, again, you just had to accept when you went to these places. The norm is their norm.
Yeah, you do what the cops want, yeah. Oh, dear. And you don't drink coffee, so I bet you that wakes you up pretty well, though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just never have. Like, I don't know whether it's because I've never grown up.
Is it an English drink when you're...
Yeah, it's sort of gathering momentum.
Yeah,
tea would be the sort of classic, but I don't do that either.
Right.
Just water or beer.
Right.
But never together.
All right, quick side. What's your favorite beer?
Anything by Willie the Boatman in Sydney.
Oh yeah.
They're a nice little local brewery doing some amazing stuff. And then in Botany, there's a place called One Drop, and they do an eclectic mixture of beers. So it's pretty punchy. I think it's 8%, but their milk oat IPA.
Milk.
Yeah,
Right.
is
So milk oat. Okay.
is fascinating.
Yeah. So you're doing this light aircraft
yeah.
transfer part of your career. How old are you there? Or what PGY are you?
Equivalent.
Are you 5 years out of uni at that point?
Yeah, probably mid registrar level, so maybe 5 or 6 years in, and 3 years into anaesthetic training.
Yeah, right.
And so that springboarded me on to getting an air ambulance job in Sydney. So I at the point at which I was in my final years of training, we decided that we wanted a year away, my wife and I. And we had 2 kids at this point. And I got jobs in Canada and in Sydney. And my wife said, what's the lowest temperature that either of these 2 countries get to?
Wise person. That's a good question.
And so that we ended up in Sydney.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I worked at St. George for 6 months. I went back.
So what was your relationship with St. George at that time professionally? Was it a air ambulance?
Did 6 months of air ambulance,
And
it was twinned with a 6-month stint as a fellow here.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So 6 months on ground, 6 months in the air.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good mix.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was great, and we travelled in every direction for 2 hours.
Is that still going on, by the way?
What?
This air ambulance contract?
No,
I would be interested in learning about that.
Yeah. No, but there's several colleagues who work in the department who still do a hybrid job.
I've seen them drop off, and well, I don't know if that's the
same
exact
people.
position, but on the helicopter transfers, or open thoracotomies, I've been on a couple of. I've been up to the helipad for a couple of those, but as an ED,
Yeah, don't worry, I'll introduce you to Rob Scott, who I'm sure will be your next interview.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a great person to
talk to.
To
And so, have you been with St. George ever since?
No, so I went back to the UK.
Oh.
I was a consultant over there for 3 years, had another child.
Did you do your consultant? Did you become a consultant in Australia, then go over, or you finished off your training back in the UK? So, okay.
And then was a consultant in the UK for 3 years, had another child, so we have 3 kids, and then decided to make the jump back over here about 6 years ago.
Hey, if you want more highlight clips of the Doctors Getting Coffee podcast, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and make sure you hit the bell icon next to it to get notifications whenever there's a new highlight clip. I'm releasing sometimes 4 or even 5 clips per week, then make sure you hit that button. Now, if you want to watch the entire video podcast, consider becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member to support the channel, and you will get, as one of your special privileges, access to the entire video podcast library. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.